The recently concluded BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, has drawn global attention not only for its sheer scale but also for the boldness of its leaders' declaration. What stood out most in the communiqué was a lengthy section devoted to geopolitics and security, which delivered pointed criticism of Israel's recent military actions, both in Gaza and in its strike against Iran, one of BRICS' newest members. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. This Rio gathering was historic in its size and symbolism. For the first time, BRICS stood as a bloc of 10 full members, accompanied by 10 official partner countries. Indonesia formally joined this year, marking a significant expansion. The enlargement highlighted BRICS' rising profile as more than just an economic coalition. It now positions itself as a serious player in the global political arena. In a world increasingly defined by tension, conflict, and fractured alliances, the bloc's willingness to confront sensitive geopolitical and hard security issues demonstrated its growing confidence and relevance. Unlike NATO or the G7, BRICS is not a rigidly formalized organization. It is a loose yet increasingly influential coalition, uniting the so-called Global East, Russia and China, with a diverse collection of Global South nations. Originally established in 2009 as BRIC Brazil, Russia, India, and China, it expanded the following year when South Africa was welcomed, becoming BRICS. A new chapter began after 2023 when 5 additional countries, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates, were admitted as full members. Alongside them, 10 partner states were granted a secondary, but still significant, level of participation. Despite this expansion, the group's foundational mission remained unchanged, strengthening the multilateral order and addressing collective action challenges in the global economy. Unsurprisingly, this year's declaration still devoted extensive paragraphs to bread and butter BRICS issues such as development financing, global health, trade, science and technology, and climate change. Yet, compared to earlier years, the geopolitical and security sections were far more robust, revealing a new identity for BRICS as not merely an economic forum but a counterweight bloc with political clout. The shift toward hard security issues was accelerated after the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022. With the international system increasingly shaped by major conflicts and proxy wars, BRICS could no longer ignore geopolitics. The Rio summit underscored this evolution. While Ukraine received less attention this year, conflicts in the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia dominated discussions and the final declaration. Israel was at the center of the sharpest critiques. Without naming the United States directly, the declaration issued 7 separate censures aimed at Israeli conduct. These ranged from the ongoing occupation of Palestinian land to the obstruction of humanitarian access, the deliberate targeting of aid workers, and the reported use of starvation as a weapon of war. Israel's presence in southern Lebanon was likewise condemned, as was the broader question of occupation. The document also recalled the high-profile case filed by South Africa at the International Court of Justice in 2023, accusing Israel of genocide. Notably absent from the text was any mention of Hamas or the October 7, 2023 terrorist assault on Israel. The omission was deliberate, though the declaration did demand the release of all hostages and detainees, a phrasing broad enough to cover Israeli hostages held in Gaza and Palestinians detained by Israel. Perhaps the most striking geopolitical section addressed Israel's recent strike on Iran, which joined BRICS in 2023. Though Israel and the United States were not named outright, the attacks were denounced as violations of sovereignty and international law. The language was noticeably firmer than the joint BRICS statement released only weeks earlier, suggesting the bloc had hardened its position ahead of the Rio summit. The UN Security Council was invoked, signaling BRICS' intention to frame the matter within international legal institutions rather than bilateral disputes. Beyond the Middle East, the declaration expanded its scope to other regions facing turmoil. The April 22 terror attack in Pahalgam, Kashmir, was explicitly condemned, with solidarity expressed toward India. Similarly, the targeting of civilian sites in Kursk, Russia, was criticized. Interestingly, neither Pakistan nor Ukraine, often accused of involvement in these contexts, were mentioned by name, likely to preserve internal unity within BRICS. Sudan, Syria, and Haiti each received dedicated paragraphs, underscoring the bloc's concern for fragile states. The Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region were also referenced in the broader context of security. Taken together, the security language reflected an ambition to speak for the global South on crises that have long been sidelined in Western-dominated forums. While the headlines focused on BRICS, sharp words on Gaza and Iran, the bulk of the declaration remained anchored in non-security themes. Development finance through the New Development Bank (NDB) remained central, along with commitments to food security, public health, education, and joint space science initiatives. Climate change, unsurprisingly, was given unusual prominence, a nod to Brazil's priorities as host. The declaration linked climate action directly to development needs and lambasted the European Union's carbon border adjustment mechanism as a thinly veiled protectionist policy. The text also voiced serious concerns about the rise of unilateral tariff and non-tariff measures, a clear swipe at the United States, which it argued distort global trade and undermine World Trade Organization norms. If there was a unifying theme across both the economic and political sections, it was the vision of a multipolar international order. The declaration explicitly recognized multipolarity as a present reality rather than a distant aspiration. It celebrated the idea that multiple power centers could coexist, reducing dominance by any single bloc. Multipolarity, it argued, offered emerging markets and developing nations the chance to unlock their full potential and play a constructive role on the world stage. The West, unsurprisingly, has been uneasy about this trajectory. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, who remains an influential political voice, issued a fiery response on his Truth Social platform. He warned that any country aligning itself with BRICS policies would face an automatic 10% tariff on exports to the United States. The threat coincides with his self-declared July 9, Liberation Day, deadline, when details of the tariff package are expected to be finalized. Whether Trump's ultimatum materializes remains uncertain, but the episode highlighted a widening chasm in world politics. On one side, a coalition of emerging powers coalescing under BRICS to challenge Western economic and political dominance. On the other, a United States willing to punish alignment with rival blocs through economic coercion. The Rio summit made clear that BRICS has outgrown its early identity as a mere economic grouping. By addressing some of the most combustible geopolitical crises of our time, from Gaza to Iran, from Kashmir to Sudan, it has taken a bold step into contested terrain. While internal differences remain, the consensus achieved in Rio suggests a bloc increasingly capable of presenting a unified front on global issues. What remains to be seen is how much influence BRICS can wield in shaping outcomes, and how far Western powers, particularly the US, are willing to go in resisting this multipolar vision. What is undeniable is that the Rio Declaration marks a new phase. BRICS is no longer just a forum for economic coordination, but an emerging pole in world politics, prepared to confront conflict, demand accountability, and advocate for a reordered international system. Every summit has a history, and the gathering in Rio de Janeiro did not appear out of thin air. To understand why the 2025 declaration reverberated so strongly across the globe, one must trace the origins of BRICS itself, from its conception as a catchy acronym for emerging markets to its current position as one of the most ambitious attempts to reorder global power. The story begins not in a presidential palace or diplomatic conference hall, but in the offices of Goldman Sachs in London. In 2001, economist Jim O'Neill penned a research paper titled, Building Better Global Economic BRICs. In it, he argued that four large developing economies, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, would become increasingly dominant in the world economy and should be recognized as a distinct category. His argument was simple. These countries had vast populations, rapid growth rates, and the potential to reshape global